Good afternoon. The most important thing about having a homestead is the goal of getting self-sufficient. The closer to self-sufficiency you can get, the better off you are. The number one thing I think a person can do to become self-sufficient is install a solar system. If you can produce your own power, you can generate water from your well, you can do everything else. But that is the hardest thing that a person can do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through what we did and what I wish we would have done when we had solar hooked up and give you guys some pointers that'll save you guys some headaches in the future. So follow along. We're going to discuss a few of the topics that we wish we would have known and some of the good things and some of the bad things that took place during our solar install. Okay, the most important thing you should do when you do business with anybody is get everything in writing. A lot of times when you deal with companies, they tell you one thing and then you get another thing. Get it in writing and hold them in writing. The biggest problem in communication on solar that I think anybody's going to get is going to be over these things. These are our batteries to our house. You need to know that if you have solar and it's tied to the grid, that it does not work when the power goes out if you do not have batteries. So without batteries, your solar is completely useless other than making a monetary system where you're getting credits and being able to pay your electric forward basically through that way. But as far as having power when a grid goes down situation, without batteries, you're not going to have it. So you need to make dang sure that you have batteries and sufficient batteries to be able to run your house. Okay, as I showed you earlier at the batteries and explained that solar is useless without batteries when the power goes out. So if you're going towards self-sufficiency, you need batteries. If you're just trying to save money on your electric bill, you'll be okay, but when a grid down situation goes out, you have no power. We live in the middle of nowhere. When power goes out, it takes a long time for it to come back up because we're not a high priority on getting anything down. There's no stores, there's no hospitals, there's nothing in our community. So if power goes down, we're one of the last places that's going to be able to get hooked back up. So you want to make sure that if you're going to do it as a self-sufficiency, that you go with batteries. Okay, first thing first, like I told you, is to get it in writing. When we got our solar installed, we bought from a company. I met a guy online and we discussed solar. He had a pretty good sales pitch and I did a little research on him and I thought, well, I'm going to go with this guy because I liked him. So we bought it through him. We'll come to find out he worked for one company and the people who did our install was another company that this company sold the contract to. So to save yourself a lot of headaches and a lot of money, I would recommend going straight to the company that you buy your solar from. Don't hire these salespeople because all they're doing is getting paid a whole bunch of money to be a middleman. And when there's a middleman, there's going to be lack of communication. It's going to take a little bit longer. It was a big headache. Now, there was a lot of miscommunication between me and my salesman. Thank God he was a pretty decent person and a man of his word, and he came back and really kind of helped me get the mess cleaned up that the company he used to work for had done. So we want to make sure that we deal with reputable people, and we want to deal with a company that is actually going to do the solar install. If you don't, you're going to end up, like I say, get charged more, and you're not going to know who you're dealing with. They're not, the people who are selling you the product are not going to be the ones accountable for getting the product installed. So you want to make sure that's done. You want to make sure it is 100% every detail in writing so that when you are being promised a system and the capabilities of that system, it's in writing to where you can hold them to the wall. When we bought our system, they told us if we bought 2 batteries that we'd be able to run our whole house. Our whole house does not run on the batteries. The batteries only run the core of the house. They also told us that we'd be able to run the entire house on a 72-hour period with the batteries. And that wasn't true either. And thank God the electricians who did the install with the solar team were really honest and factual with me. They walked me through and explained that we would be able to run the core of our house. So we have our system set up where basically our whole house is hooked up except the big electric items. Like we don't have our hot water heater and our dryer and our kitchen stove hooked up. We have several deep freezes, the well to our house, the air conditioning and everything like that is hooked onto the solar, but those other things are not. And if a grid down situation goes down, I'm okay with cooking out on a grill if I have to, using the microwave, taking a cold shower, or hanging my clothes out to dry. We still have TV, we still have our freezers, we still have water, we still have all the important things. So you want to make sure that when you're discussing those items that they're actually what you're going to get. We were misinformed. Everybody kind of worked through it and it turned out okay, but it could have been a deal breaker on the situation. The next thing you want to make sure of is that your power company that is providing your electric normally has net metering. And basically what net metering is I'm paying 9 cents a kilowatt hour or 17 cents a kilowatt hour, whatever the going rate is in your area, that they will buy that power back at a comparable rate. A lot of companies won't. A lot of companies won't buy power back at a quarter of the rate. We're very fortunate. Our electric company has a 1-for-1 net metering rate. That means for every kilowatt hour that we use, we get the same credit for every kilowatt hour that we make. So it evens out. So if we make a whole bunch of electric in the summer and say we don't in the wintertime, we build a bank of credit that buys that kilowatt hour back at a different time. Now with that said, you need to be aware that if you look at your electric bill, about half of your electric bill is kilowatt hours, the other half is fuel surcharges and stuff like that. You're not going to get paid for any of that. They only pay you for kilowatt hours. So you need to be aware of that thing. The next thing, when your power company comes and hooks everything up, you need to make sure that they actually have done all of their paperwork. You need to make sure that they have permission to hook up. You need to make sure that they have everything inspected by the state and that everything's approved and you have permission to operate through the power company. If they come here and hook things up, which trust me, ours got done that way by a miscommunication because somebody dropped the ball on the original company to the second company. So if that gets done, they could end up hurting somebody. A transformer might not be big enough. There's a lot of things that can take place. So you want to make sure that all of that is done. And the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Ask the questions. Make sure and hold them to the line on what they're doing. Make sure, another thing, when you get your system designed, we got a whole house system. We got a system, pardon, bugs are bad out here. We got a system big enough that would be able to run everything that we had in our house and then some. And they went off of last year's electric bill, and we did 106% of what we were supposed to have used over the last year. Well, last year was a pretty mild summer, and we didn't think about that until now. Today, it's 8 o'clock at night, and it is literally 107 degrees here today. We're still making more power than we're using today, so it's working out, but we wanted to have way more than that to expand in the future. Now, will this happen all the time? Hopefully not. If it does, we're going to have a house for sale, so it doesn't matter. But if you build it on a summer that's 100 degrees and then you have a summer that's 110 degrees, you got to understand you're using more electric than what you designed it for. So whatever you design your system for, spend a little bit of extra money and make it just a little bit bigger than it originally was planned to be. Then if a year like this year happens, you can make sure of it. Hold them in writing on a deadline. Make sure and have a deadline. A lot of the places, you know, if you buy, you can get a cheaper rate, or if you finance, they're going to hook on the second that it's hooked on. So you want to make sure that you have in writing the deadline, and that if they don't have it hooked on and the payments are coming, or whatever the situation is, that they will actually take care of that. We did not have that in writing, but our solar install team was pretty awesome. And because of the lack of communication that took place with the three entities, us, the power company, and the sales company, the power did not get turned on fast enough. Now, we were fortunate. They came and actually paid our electric payment in the solar payment to get things started, but some companies won't do that, so you want to make sure that that's the deal as well. Also, the warranty. This is a 25-year warranted product. It's actually made in Texas. We have an American-made system, but you want to make sure that your warranty is in writing so that if something goes wrong, you can hold them, again, accountable to where if something takes place, you know, whatever you paid all this money for is going to be able to be taken care of. So get your warranty in writing as well. You need to also check with your power company. I have a buddy of mine who has solar installed in the county next to us with a different power company, and they got a letter in the mail this week that states they have to have $1 million liability insurance policy to be able to have their system hooked to the grid. So check with those kinds of things, and make sure if you don't have homeowners insurance that you get some kind of a policy that covers that if needed. Now, with that, our system is warranted against everything but acts of God. Our system was a $160,000 system, and our homeowners was only $20 a month to add it to it. So if you have insurance, it's pretty cheap and pretty well worth the problem, you know, to get the insurance on it. The most important thing that I think a person can have with the solar system for self-sufficiency is because you're 100% contained. Our system is sitting here. We've had 80-mile-an-hour winds. It's very well built. It had no issues going through there, and there's no above ground. Everything that is hooked onto here is ran underground. So pretty much, unless there is an ice storm or it's raining cats and dogs for weeks, and you know, and there's just no sunlight, this thing's going to produce enough power. We're going to have no problems whatsoever. And with the batteries that we have, they're going to be able to run what we have for usage in the core of our house for the allotted amount of time that we have planned, and then the next day the power should kick on. So the worst case scenario with this situation is we have to come out here and knock snow off of it or something like that. But as far as not having power for that many days in a row, we should be fine because we built a big enough system, we have big enough battery banks to be able to run that. So you want to make sure that if you do a whole house system like what we did, that it's big enough and that you have big enough battery systems to run it as well. If I could go back, I would add another battery. Now batteries are outrageous. Those batteries on this system were $20,000 a piece. Now with that said, if you get a whole house generator system, you're going to pay pretty close to that same amount of money, but you're going to have to buy fuel for it forever. Where we don't have to buy fuel, the system's warranted for 25 years, we don't have to buy fuel or mess with fuel, and the little bit of extra expense that we had, I feel is worth it for that. So if you ask me, would I recommend solar? 100% I would recommend solar to anybody. Would I ask that a person goes through a few little, more steps of being prepared and making sure what you're getting is what you were promised? Yeah, I would have done that. At the end of the day, I'm super pleased. The company who did my install, I'm 100% satisfied with their work. Their service department is unbelievable. The communication is great, and any issues that we had were easily resolved. So get a good reputable company, check with lots of people that have had solar and check those references. Make sure that they're able to. Get with your electric company, make sure those things are good, and understand all the ins and outs of what you're getting into before you get into it. If you go through these steps in the steps that we didn't, you're going to have a lot better situation than we had at the end of the day, and you're going to be very happy. I mean, it is 110 to 118 degrees here this week, and our house is 100% being provided by solar, keeping the air conditioner at a very comfortable temperature, running our stove, doing all the things that we want to do, and we're providing our own power. That's pretty rewarding to be that self-sufficient. So thanks for watching. Hope this helped you guys. Have a good night. God bless.